And welcome to the Confound Millennial, starring Steven Stirvin Michaels and featuring special guest Peter Duff.
I take a fistful of pills every day in the morning. Maybe I'm rotting my brain with pot and video games. I should try to make this sound better. Then I should write a bridge for this song, but I just don't need the pressure. So I'll call it good and move on. I should floss more. I should drink less. I should care more, but right now I couldn't care.
Hey man, what's up?
Hey, not much. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's been a wild day. It's been a wild day. Like I told you just before we started this episode, I was up in a tree trying to save a kitten. But when a 5-year-old girl tells you to save a kitten, you get up in that tree.
Definitely. Yeah, they're funny enough. There was a couple weeks ago, there was a cat stuck on my neighbor's roof, and so we had to do that too.
But so tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is the man, the myth, the legend, Peter Duff?
Cool. All right, so this song is kind of different and kind of cool for me because I've spent the last I've basically spent the last decade working on songs for other people in the studio or working on songs with bands, and in both of those contexts, ultimately at the end of the day, it's somebody else's big picture creative vision. Somebody else is calling the shots. You know, when I'm in the studio with an artist, I always tell them, like, I'll give you my ideas, but, you know, at the end of the day, tell me to fuck off because it's your song, not mine. And so this time I was kind of like, I want to finally do something that's all my own stuff start to finish. And that's something I haven't done historically because I don't really consider myself a singer, a vocalist, a frontman, anything like that. But I kind of realized that, you know, if I'm going to release anything of my own, I kind of have to suck it up and, you know, let my voice and my lyrics and everything be what they're going to be. And yeah, so this was kind of the result of just saying, fuck it. And I'm finally going to get this thing off of my to-do list and put something out. And yeah, and I also tried to be really open and honest in this song about kind of where I'm at with kind of my career and like my mental health and all those kinds of things. And so the song is really me just kind of going, hey, this is me both musically and in terms of like content and that kind of thing.
And that's we talk a lot about mental health on here.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of our 3 staples. And dude, it's important to be just open, honest, and you know, you don't always have to tell the world, but if you want to, you know, it's a very important therapeutic thing to get that out there in your art.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you were mentioning your voice. Your voice is fine, man. I got a buddy of mine. He's in a band, and he sends me, you know, him and his brother. They play like nobody's business, but they send me tracks of just them doing the vocals. Dear Lord.
Well, the difference may in part be that I'm a professional engineer, and so I spend lots and lots of time making crappy sounding vocals sound good. So good chance if your friends sent me the stuff before they sent it to you, you might also like those vocals better. But yeah. So what you don't see or hear as a listener is, you know, the 20 takes I did that I picked the best word from each take, and then the tuning on every single word and layering it, you know, 3 to 6 times and all that kind of back end magic that, you know, I do to make it a little bit more presentable, which, you know, some people think is, you know, that kind of editing and polishing and stuff makes it less authentic or something, but that's part of my craft, is the way I'm able to manipulate things and that kind of stuff. And so it helps present the vision in the way I actually want it to be, for better or worse. But you might not see me. You're probably never going to see me going and trying to play this stuff live.
I see people attacking singers for editing their like TikToks and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, the thing is, like, if it's cheating, to do that, if it is easier to do that, you do it.
Right. Just if it sounds good, it is good.
You're saying crap about people that's editing this stuff.
Yeah.
Edit it yourself. See how good it sounds.
Yeah.
You went to school for this. You know what you're doing. You have a right to do it.
Yeah, it's like it's my song. I'll do whatever I want. And if you don't like the way the vocals sound, or if the vocals sound too fake for you, then like, cool, listen to another song.
Right. Like there's not enough music out there.
Right. Totally.
Which is another struggle. How do you find yourself at this point in your career trying to put your foot in the door?
That's a great question. That's I think part of what makes musicians more likely to deal with mental health stuff is it's really fucking depressing to be like, here's this thing that I've worked on for tens of hours or whatever, and not that many people are really going to hear it but at the same time, somebody that has a TikTok account or something and they post silly videos, they get 2 million views in like a day, and you're like, what the hell? This is there's a difference in the level of it's all subjective, but quality of a product or something. But because it's so hyper competitive and everybody can put stuff out now, and social media is so cluttered for distributing, it's really discouraging. And so part of how I deal with that is being realistic and kind of, I'm not trying to be a big artist. I'm never expecting to make my whole living and career in music be about the songs that I write or record. For me, at the end of the day, like, I want to put out stuff that some people hear and maybe it helps some people kind of feel like they have somebody else to relate to about like the content of the song, or maybe it gives some people ideas of different things they could do production wise or something. But ultimately my career is based around helping other people make music, and so I know that's where I'm like focusing kind of those career goals, and then anything I get from this is kind of just the extra fun stuff on top and my own kind of outlet. And then it also ties in with some of the new stuff I've been doing on my new YouTube channel, where I'm, also talking about this kind of music and mental health stuff. And so, releasing some music. Oh yeah.
Link down below.
Yeah. But yeah, so releasing a song that talks about the stuff that the YouTube channel has to do with, is just like hopefully another way to bring people into that conversation.
And what is the YouTube channel, by the way, for the listeners?
Yeah, it's just YouTube / Peter Duff Music.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I'm using it to, release some of my own music like this song, and then I'm also having conversations with other musicians about the relationship between music and mental health. Like, why are musicians like 70% more likely to be depressed? Like, there's a weird correlation there. It's like, do depressed people play music, or do people who play music get depressed, kind of thing? So that's really interesting to me and important to me to talk about. And then I'm also using the channel to kind of share some of my knowledge about recording and production and mixing and that kind of stuff.
I personally think it's depressed people playing music, not music makes people depressed, because I mean, a podcast isn't necessarily an art form, but I am 100% identify as an artist.
Totally.
And just all the art friends that I have, we're all just a bunch of tortured souls, not sure what we're doing, but you see the most beautiful creations come out of the people that are the most tortured.
Right. Yeah, which is really interesting because the flip side of it is then other people consuming that art that people are creating often find, that music or whatever as like something that helps them feel better, and so it's a really kind of weird juxtaposition and kind of a little bit of an oxymoron in there, But I think it also is partially like you said, like, how do you deal with releasing this thing and feeling like nobody's gonna hear it or whatever, whatever specifically you asked about. But like, it's like, yeah, it's probably, you're right, mostly the tortured people that do the art as a way of expressing yourself, but then the relationship you have with like putting that into the world and stuff makes all that worse, because then you're going, nobody likes this, nobody, who cares, what's the point? So I think those things, it's kind of like a vicious cycle, a little bit.
It's like, I totally get it too, what you were talking about with, looking at, your own personal stuff versus, let's say, somebody's TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've been doing this podcast 3 years, 2.5 years now. I made a new TikTok account last night, and I've got more likes on that TikTok account than I had the entire season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that's something that's really frustrating to me, is that, all of that social media stuff that's really popular now is all about like, it's a 30-second video, it's a 10-second clip, it's, like, nobody has the attention span or wants to commit to long-form content. But then that long-form content, whether it's an hour-long podcast or whether it's a 3-minute song, it's like, that's actually the stuff that's more valuable. But we're kind of,
and we're seeing,
losing, yeah.
Because of TikTok, we're actually seeing a point where I'm seeing a lot of songs come out that are a minute or less.
Yeah.
I'm like, and they're obviously designed to be TikTokable,
right,
or Instagram or whatever. But the thing is, it's not long enough for a song.
Right.
I mean, I guess if it's designed to be that long, it is. But if you're just doing it just, to capitalize on the low attention span media like TikTok, Instagram, I mean, you're not really putting out the best quality, are you? Right.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of thing that we're stuck in, I think.
I don't know. Do you think that it's going to start affecting the music industry, that you're going to start seeing a lot of like shorter songs?
It's a good question. Like, I know, like, some people I've worked with have been like, yeah, let's do a minute song. But I think that's more because like I work with like a lot of pop punk bands and stuff like that. And that's kind of like a punk thing, like some bands will have just like a minute. It's just like a crazy thing that you play to get a circle pit going or a mosh pit going or something. Like I remember there was a band that my friends in high school like saw at a show one time, and they had this song that was just called like 7 Seconds of Fury, where they just played this like really intense quick breakdown, and then they're like, you guys want to hear it again? And then they just do it again. So it's like, that's kind of like I think that kind of thing can be fun when you're like, when it's like, here's a short thing, like for the sake of being fun or for like not being that serious or something. Yeah. Or like, here's a minute long kind of like intro track to the album or something. Like, there's totally a time and place for that. But I think it's shitty when your artistic vision gets cut down to a minute or 20 seconds or something, because that's what the big corporations tell you is what's acceptable content now. Like, that sucks. It's kind of like all the platforms and everything just increasingly put people into boxes, which, like, at the same time, like, there is definitely like value in having limitations when you're trying to do creative stuff. It makes you think differently, but this doesn't feel like a limitation for the sake of, creativity. It's all about just like, get people addicted to shit so you can sell more ads.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of being back in high school writing some short film scripts. And man, that was the worst thing in the world for me because I write the script, have this perfect, exactly how I wanted it in my head. And we go for a read through. We're like, Steven, 30 minutes is not a short film. We meant 5. I'm like, I tried to make it 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
But so what's the name of the song again? I'm incredibly for forgetting.
No worries. The song's called The To-Do List.
The to-do list. Okay, yeah. But if you can't tell, it has just been a wild week here.
Yeah.
But so what are your plans going forward past the to-do list?
Yeah, so I'm continuing to do my mixing and production work. I've got a couple really cool projects kind of in line right now. And then like I said, I'm doing this YouTube stuff, and that's kind of in early stages, but I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm trying to, bring people into that. But I also am working on some more of my own stuff. I'm not totally sure what the big picture vision for it is yet. I've gotten some really positive feedback on this song already from people, and they're like, when's the whole album of this coming out? And I'm like, I don't know, but part of putting something out was to gauge people's interest. Now if I know people actually like that and would be interested in an EP or an album or something, like that's definitely something that I'll be considering doing. But yeah, it's also kind of a question of like, how much am I willing to commit to one kind of style? Because there's a million things that I like doing. This song, The To-Do List, is pretty like kind of poppy and upbeat and like inspired by bands like Two Door Cinema Club. But I also really like doing kind of softer, more chill stuff with like Death Cab for Cutie vibes. And, I think some of those things can go together. But I also play like in a pop punk band called Hard to Hit, and that's totally different. And I also like doing more like kind of instrumental and orchestral composition kind of stuff. So really what's next is trying to figure out how do I tie a lot of those things that I wanted to do into something that's kind of cohesive and that people can enjoy.
My personal opinion is just keep on keeping on with the pop stuff. That's my shit right there.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
For sure.
But no, dude, I mean, it kind of sucks that you've got to pick something to go with.
Yep. Yeah.
So
just saying, as a artist, soul of an artist here, I'm not good at any damn thing. But I can paint here, I can do this, I can paint some D&D miniatures, I can do all these different things a little bit at a time. It would absolutely kill me to have to stick to one of them.
Yeah. And that's also a reason why I haven't released anything till now, because I'm like, well, I don't want to put myself in a box. So yeah, I'm that's part of why I like started a YouTube channel, is because I wanted to use that as a platform to release things more so than like, here's an album or an EP, because I feel like on YouTube you can go, this is one video, like here's a cool thing to watch, and then maybe the next thing I put up will be completely different. And if they're not coexisting on an album, then somebody's not going, oh, what the hell is this?
And it's like interviewing these bands for the show, I see more and more often bands are taking the route of not releasing EPs, not releasing albums, but releasing singles just so they can show off all the different things they can do.
Right. Totally.
And that, I don't know, I like that. I like a band or an artist that just comes out and it's like, this is what all I can do. What the hell you want from me?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I've been hearing that from a lot of people too. And I always think it's fun when you get to see an artist. It's like, oh, I really like, this, pop punk song or something that you did, and then they release something totally different. You're like, oh, that's really cool. That's a different kind of like side of your personality or something. And I think part of the problem there, part of what makes it hard is, again, kind of comes back to like social media and how do you promote yourself and all this stuff, because I constantly get ads for like how to promote your music, how to be successful on social media, blah, 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 buy my course, all this stuff. Yeah. And like all of those marketing people will be like, well, you have to have a really specific niche and you have to have like this well-defined brand, because if you're not targeting at this subsect of people that you're going to serve ads to, then how are you going to build an audience? And it's like, well, that's no fun. Who wants to do that? But yeah, I think hopefully more and more people will be kind of saying fuck it, and like you said, do what I want.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're entering into a time where, or we're already in a time where people care. How am I trying to word this? It's like people care more about the artist than they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You see, when I remember, growing up, it was all about the music. And if, let's take, I talk about these guys too much, but it fits. Let's take Linkin Park.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, they obviously, from the beginning to the end, they changed direction a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be in the group that's like, oh man, they're sellouts. They're just whatever. And it's like, no. When you read into it, they were kind of that way in the beginning. They were being, doing what the label wanted them to do. And they finally got their freedom and they became what they wanted to be.
Yep.
And you're seeing a lot more people care about artists being what they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Totally,
and so I think maybe not immediately, but in the very near future, we're going to see a time where it's easier to promote yourself as yourself instead of how it used to be selling the artwork. You're selling the artist.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
These days.
Yeah. Which, probably comes with its own set of unhealthy pressures and unintended side effects, and we'll find out what those are another 5-10 years down the road.
Oh yeah, but I am excited for seeing that, because there's so many, like I already said, there's so many talented artists out there that just can't be caged in this one genre.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, we've talked about your song. But we didn't talk about, that you did everything in it. How many instruments do you play?
I play, trombone and saxophone poorly at this point because I took about a decade off and I've just started trying to relearn them. But trombone, saxophone, guitar, bass, keys, drums are the main ones. I can pick up stuff and figure it out most of the time if I need to or want to. I've got a ukulele too that I screw around with sometimes. If it makes sound, I'm interested in screwing with it and can figure out how to use it in a song if I want to most of the time.
It's awesome to be that talented, man. But you mentioned the trombone and stuff earlier. I was like, we going ska now?
Yeah. It's funny that like the combination of things I do, especially given that I play like pop punk and stuff, it's like you would expect me to have been in the ska band at some point, but that hasn't happened. Maybe if the right opportunity comes someday, that might be fun. But I've worked on some ska, like recording and mixing and stuff, and I love that. Anytime you get to work with, I love rock bands and heavy music and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's, guitars, drums, bass, vocal. So anytime I get to mix a horn or a weird keyboard or something, it's always a fun change of pace.
So now I need to bring it into every time I have anybody on, I got to bring it into the three things that we usually keep up with. We talked about mental health a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about music. Now, the third thing, I just categorize it with one word, magic. But what that means is nerdy things.
Okay.
Over the card game magic.
Okay.
So what about you's the nerdiest thing you got going on?
I mean, that probably depends on your definition of nerd. I would probably say in I think the sense you're talking about, I'm really into like retro video games. I've got like the NES Classic and the SNES Classic and the little Atari reissue and the little Sega Genesis reissue. And those are super fun. When I was growing up, I wasn't really allowed to play video games at all. And so, as I've gotten older, I played like GameCube and PS2, and I have an Xbox 360 now, which for me is like a really modern, up-to-date console. But I totally missed all of that stuff, like in the 90s and whatnot. So it's really fun to go back and like play Mario World 3 or like, Zelda on SNES and that kind of stuff. So that's probably the nerdiest stuff I've been up to recently.
Now the important question
Yeah.
is, because I nerd out over the three things: music, magic, mental health.
Mm-hmm.
You had something else you were thinking about. What do you nerd out over?
So, like from a nerdy technical standpoint, I a while ago learned how to like repair vintage amplifiers and stuff. So that's like a different kind of like nerdy, more technical level. So it's really fun to get into an amp and, swap out capacitors and tubes and try to figure out where there are problems and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of like I said earlier, like when I was growing up, I thought I was probably going to be an engineer of some point, not like a mixing engineer, recording engineer. Like, yeah, I'm an engineer, but in the traditional sense, engineer. So, those kinds of things are fun to kind of get in and play with that other kind of side of stuff that's less the traditional artsy, whatever you want to. However you want to differentiate those things.
That's still pretty cool, man. Man of many talents.
Yeah, I like. I think like one of my kind of philosophies is like, if there's something that I need to do or that like I always try to do something myself before I hire somebody to do something. Like you can take your amp to the repair shop, and I, when I was younger, I did that all the time. But a lot of the time it wouldn't, they wouldn't do what I needed them to do, or it would take them a month to get it back to me or something. And I'm like, screw that. I'm going to try to do it myself. And, that's kind of how I got into recording and mixing and stuff. And I've also done that with like, I really love, before the pandemic, my wife and I really loved going to like craft cocktail bars or tiki bars and stuff. And so I like learn how to make those like nice craft cocktails at home, and kind of like anything that's a skill that I can learn. I love doing that. It's super fun.
Dude, that's awesome. That's I'm not quite as talented, but I feel like I'm talking to somebody that knows what I'm talking about, because just learning how to do new things, I mean, that's a thing to nerd out about in its own way.
Yeah. And if I could just for a second, like, one of my, like a little pet peeve of mine, pet peeve isn't quite the right word, but, if I'm like, I play 6 different instruments or whatever, or I also do this or do this, people are like, oh, you're so talented. It's like, I think like there is some inherent talent stuff, but like you said, like it's learning things, and like anybody can learn things. You just have to put in the work and like believe that you can. Like I don't have a talent for repairing guitar amplifiers or something, but I just decided I'm going to try it and see if I can do it, and watch as many YouTube videos as possible, and find books and stuff like that. So like I think I would encourage like you or listeners or anybody, like don't let like quote unquote thinking you're not talented be like an excuse not to try something. Like you don't really know what you can do until you really make an effort at something.
Right. And just because you fail at the one thing doesn't mean that you're not able to, like, for instance, while you were saying that, I was thinking, I've tried to learn different languages. I can't learn that, but I can learn other things.
Right.
And maybe you just haven't found, well, I was going to say your niche, but it's not really a niche. It's your style. Like,
and I think also like learning how you learn is really important. Like for like I'm a trial and error person. Like I'll like if there's something I want to figure out, I'll go and these days normally like watch a couple YouTube videos and then just go like, okay, I'll give it a shot, and if it doesn't work, I'll start over. Like I've been like getting really into like teaching myself cooking lately and stuff, and instead of following recipes or whatever, it's like I'll like look up a recipe or go on YouTube and watch somebody make it or something, and then go, okay, I'll give this a try, and taste every step of the way, and like getting that feedback from, if it's cooking, tasting, you go, something's wrong, adjust it. If it's working on a mix, you go, oh, I'm going to try something really crazy that, I'm going to put this effect on that, and immediately it sounds awesome. You're like, great, that works. You just learned something. Or you go, well, that sounds like trash. You learned something too, So yeah, that kind of like, and so for me, it's like, I know I learn by trial and error, and I learn by watching people other doing things and then trying it. So if you learn that like you learn better by like reading a ton of books or something, or you learn better by doing this or doing that, like that's probably half the battle.
So I was going to ask you, we're nearing the end of our time here. I was going to ask you if you had any last inspirational words, but it sounds like you just gave them.
Yeah, probably. That's kind of like, I think the biggest kind of takeaway from my song and everything I'm trying to do now is just like, just fucking do stuff, like give it a go, see what happens, be really honest with yourself about it, be really honest with other people about it, and if you fail, you learn something too.
And that's kind of been the theme of my life the past couple of weeks too. My therapist has pretty much, not in those words, but said that like you got to start doing stuff, whether you fail or not, start doing it.
Yeah. And that's, at the same time, that's really fucking hard. Like, I struggle with depression all the time. Like, it sounds like I'm doing all this amazing stuff, but some weeks I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'm not touching a guitar. Like, I'm just gonna lay in bed and think that I don't want to do anything. What's the point of any of it? So don't get discouraged either if you don't have the motivation for it. Like a lot of what the song is about to me is like, it's really hard to figure out what works and what doesn't for you. Both in terms of like managing mental health or like for motivating yourself to do things. And I think sometimes when you're, for me, I'm like depressed or something, and it's like, well, you should exercise and that'll make you feel better. You should change your diet and that'll make you feel better. And you should do all these things. And then you go, oh man, now there's just all these extra things on my to-do list and that feels overwhelming. And now I don't want to do any of it. Or then you beat yourself up for being a failure because you're not doing these things that you quote unquote should be doing. So like, take it easy on yourself, but at the same time, try to look out for that line between where you, taking a mental health day, or like giving yourself a break when you need a break, and then when are you just procrastinating and wallowing in things. And for me, and I think for a lot of artists, that's a really fine line to walk, you know.
Mm-hmm. But hey, thank you for coming on the show, man.
Totally.
Other than the technical issues at the beginning, it's been fun. It's been great.
Yeah,
likewise.
This has been the Confound Millennial, starring Steven Stirvin Michaels and featuring Peter Duff. Now listen to this track.